core skills, you have more players that way.
So is there kind of a number that you go by that it doesn't make sense, like you said, doesn't make sense to create a game for one person? What are the numbers that?
You know, we don't have a hard, we don't really have a hard formula there. A lot of times it's because really what you're after is you're going after the discretionary time of people, right? That you really want to capture, hey, instead of going to lunch, I'll sit and play this game. So we'll do a lot of sort of, let's say, traditional game design, thinking about player versus player, and the glory and shame of the leaderboard is a powerful motivator for some, but not everybody.
So explain what that is, so that everybody
The glory and shame of the leaderboard. So the leaderboard is sort of a list of high scores, and some people are very motivated to be first. Some people are very motivated by not being last or being above. The best story we see, managers are very motivated to stay ahead of the people on their team, right? Because they want to be seen as, you know, as higher up. And so there's a lot of pressure on managers, maybe even not even higher than their team, but they want to be at least on the board. And so, so that glory of being first, it drives a lot of competitive behavior. The shame of not being on there at all can drive a lot, but not for everybody, right? There are some cultures that's not a good way to behave or to motivate. And so then we want to look at, you know, can I beat my own high score? Can I do something for consecutive days in a row? And so this idea of player versus self. And so things that I can do where I'm kind of competing with myself or trying to keep a habit going. So building some of that into our game design. And then player versus environment, so things like puzzles and the game of Hangman, we had some success with that. Little things like that that are going to motivate a different type of player. And then what we've kind of done the last couple big releases that we've done is the idea of altruism. So we've done a lot of work around disaster preparedness, disaster response, and working with sort of government agencies and NGOs to raise awareness for people playing these games around the work that Microsoft and others are doing for disaster relief and disaster preparedness. So we did one a couple years ago called Communicate Hope, which was our product at the time was called Communicator, and people would play and earn points for a charity, a disaster relief charity, and then at the end of the game, we donated money to there was 5 choices, 5 charities, apportioned by the number of points that people had earned for those charities. So we took the pile of money and divided it up based on the points that people had earned.
So was that a game that was available to anyone?
It was
online.
It was just in Microsoft employees.
Microsoft employees. Okay,
yeah,
that's what I was wondering.
But it was anyone. We do most of this. We do internally because we're doing it with pre-release software. So we're really trying to get feedback before we release, find bugs before we release. So most of our focus has been inside and targeting Microsoft employees. Again, that diversity of feedback, that diversity of perspective in using the product. You know, we have computer science engineers, and they have a certain way of using things, and if they've been working on the product for the whole time, they know exactly the path to take to do things. But when we give it to, you know, an executive assistant or someone in support or someone in field sales, they're going to use it much differently. They're not trained as the engineer, and that diversity of usage is going to be very valuable to us in assessing the quality of the product.
Do you find any group within the company that just does not participate in these games or doesn't want to?
It's really varied. What we found is there's a set of people that are very passionate about it. It's not everyone, you know, it's I don't know the exact numbers. It's probably a small percentage of people that actually actively play. But when they do, they actively play. They are really helpful in giving us feedback and helping us with log files and things like that. So there's a lot of value, even if it's just a small number, there's a lot of value because those people are very tremendously helpful in the work that we do.
So what about the generational difference?
Yes, so it's very interesting. There's, you know, we've definitely seen a shift with the rise in social games, that the sort of the traditional gamer demographics have changed fairly dramatically. You know, everyone has this image of the high school, you know, teenage male down in the basement on the console, you know, 72 hours in a row without showering and all that. But the rise in social games has actually changed, and we heard here at the conference, the average age is 37 now, and the gender is female for the average gamer, you know, demographically, statistically. And demographically has been very interesting. Beck and Wade wrote this book called God Game, and they talk about the gamer generation. And there's a lot of statistics. The Institute for the Future has a stat that says by 2022, everyone under the age of 25 will be a digital native, will have been raised with, you know, digital tools, games, all these things. And so we've seen that generationally, that we've seen the new employee. And for us in our work, we have remote development centers, we have people from all over the world. And so games are great at bridging cultural gaps. And so, you know, if you're from overseas, we can sit down and play chess, and we both kind of are familiar with that game, and we can bond and learn how each other works through a game. And so the idea of using games to sort of build organizational awareness, organizational trust as a tool has been also very effective. So for people on our team now to, you know, when we play together, the risk of losing a game is not as great as, you know, having an adversarial discussion with your manager, right?
Yeah.
And so people start to take behaviors that really we've, in other circles, you identify as behaviors necessary for innovation. So you look at innovative companies like Pixar and IDEO and places like that, and the behaviors that those organizations are known for, things like freedom to fail, collaboration, experiment, rapid prototyping and iteration, things like that, those are all rooted in trust, right? And that I have to trust that, hey, I can fail, and it's not going to be a problem. Well, that's hard to build, and we've done a lot of work on trying to do that, but games are a great way to provide some structure to allow some of those experiments to take place. So I can take a huge risk in a game, propose something crazy and wild, and know that I don't have to worry about it because the risk is just that I would lose the game. And so games will provide a framework, or Huizenga talks about the magic circle, this voluntary place you go into to play, and that the risks are different. So, you know, you can kick a ball around the parking lot here, and it doesn't really matter, but you go on a soccer field, now there's some rules and some behavioral support that make it fun, or make it competitive, or make it interesting. And so that idea of games is that magic circle in the workplace where I can go and I can be creative, I can be innovative, I can try things, I don't have to worry about, you know, what happens if it doesn't go well, right?
And I think you can also really get at authenticity. You know, you can really see who people truly are when you're playing a game. As a soccer player for many, many years, you really get to know somebody. And people are the same on or off the field.
Yes.
You know, if you trip and fall down and they run on by, or they, you know, are you okay? Or do they stop playing and help you up?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you really get to know. So, I mean, that's part of trust.
Yes.
But it's bigger than that.
Yeah, you really get, you know, you learn how to collaborate, you learn, you know, what motivates people, what doesn't motivate people, and you really learn how to work together in a pretty much a risk-free environment,
Well,
which is awesome for creating that sort of future of work type of environment.
And you talked about trust earlier in this great way where you even talked about negative qualities. If they're known entities, then you can trust that.
Yes.
So there's all these aspects of trust.
Yes, yeah. If I know, you know, if I walk in with bad news and I know I'm going to get yelled at, I can prepare for that. And if I get yelled at 1 time out of 10 or 2 times out of 10, I don't know what's going to happen. So I can't really trust the way I would if I knew consistently, even if it's bad behavior, right? I mean, ideally you want to go in with bad news and just have a normal conversation, but But either way, as long as it's consistent, then I know that I can prepare for it, I can count on it happening, and that's going to build a bridge for trust. And again, games give you that structure, they give you that risk-free sort of magic circle place to go practice these things. And in a safer way, in a way that the risk is much lower, and in a way that I can learn and then apply going forward. As you said, will someone stop and help me up, or just ask if I'm okay? And so games are great for that.
And you talked about the cultural difference and how you don't even have to speak the same language to be able to sit down and play chess, as long as you both know the same rules. So how do you see games being a way to bridge some of the generational differences?
Yeah.
Do you have any examples or?
Well, I think, yeah, the people have different views. There's still, and we've heard here, the idea, games are gimmicky, or we don't work here, we don't play here, we work. Things like that, tend to be generational, just because the younger generation has grown up with games so prevalent. It's not necessarily all that way. There's certainly gamers. You might not mistake me for a millennial, but so as a older worker, I'm still a big fan of games. So it's not necessarily exclusive, but I think the biggest influence there has been the rise in social games, because we've seen the age differences change. The attitude towards games in general, and with mobile phones and mobile gaming, it's a lot more prevalent across all generations. And so we've really seen, I think probably, and I haven't looked at actually I don't think we have the statistics on age groups that are playing our games, but I think they tend to be younger employees, perhaps more by role than by sort of demographic, because the type of people that we want feedback from tend to be sort of those individual users. And so I think we'll have a tendency there. But I think the rise in social and mobile gaming has really changed the demographic, where it's not so distributed across or between generations the way it's been, maybe 10 years ago.
How do you think social games got developed and rolled out?
As an intern project, this is how we got started in games. In the first place, we had an intern, Angelica, come in and do this game, and we saw, literally overnight, we saw a 4 times improvement in participation. And so the idea of, hey, let's try this little thing, and then you see some success, and then, oh, well, what if we did this? And I would imagine that's how most games really get to be popular, and to, if you think about Farmville or Mafia Wars or Angry Birds, all these things kind of start and like, wow, that was kind of cool. Let's tweak this a little bit and do, wow, look at that. And you just kind of iterate and prototype and experiment, iterate some more, and I think it's and really you'd look at probably any invention in the history of mankind, it's the same kind of thing. And